This conference will now be recorded.
Great. Now imagine this, guys. Now I have a storage account. I'll go ahead and create a storage account right now. Imagine this storage account is for very, very sensitive data. I'll say sensitive. That's it. Review and create. Okay, so I'll say go ahead, create a storage account for me. So I'll say okay, fine. Give me a storage account. And guys, what is the naming convention of a storage account, guys? Anyone? What should be the naming convention? Can I give special characters to my storage account?
No, it should
No,
be unique
give
in the
Yes,
unique name.
23 characters.
unique number with numbers and alphabets.
Great. So it should be 3 to 24 characters, unique in nature, and cannot have any special characters out there. So I will say this is test STOR account to ABC000, something like this, so that it can be unique out there in nature. So I'll say okay, fine. Since this is a test environment, I'll go ahead and create this in LRS and advanced nothing. So let me say okay, fine, advanced nothing here, networking nothing here. So please stay with me on this page. So I am saying connectivity method is public all endpoints, and I'm saying Microsoft Internet Routing. And this is something that we all were seeing, right? But we never thought of understanding what this is. So I'll say review and create. So I'm not doing this, I'm doing the same thing again. I'm not touching my networking right now, and I'm saying create. So this is now going to create a storage account for me. So it says okay, fine, go ahead and initiate a deployment and create a storage account for me. Now guys, let's imagine that I have 4 to 5 containers in my storage account. I have created 4 or 5 containers in my storage account, and I'm storing all sensitive information. Imagine this is a storage account for a banking organization. And since it's a banking organization, what will generally be the information, guys? They will have all the sensitive information, customer data, everything, right? So let me say that this is a storage account for a banking organization, and they have sensitive information like customer data, transaction details, and all such things. So just in case, if I want to share the details of the storage account to, let's say, any of my colleagues securely, okay, the question is securely, then what are the options in the storage account that you guys know of? Anyone, guys? So you want to give access to someone to your storage account, but in a very secure way. Can anyone tell me what you can use?
SAS.
Okay, great. Anything else? Anything else, guys? SAS is a very good option. Yes, you can basically go ahead and generate a SAS token for it. So you can say shared access signature. So once I just type in S and say shared access signature, you can go ahead, generate a shared access signature, and you can limit the permission, or you can, let's say, deny someone a permission and etc. But just imagine on that particular day that someone got the SAS. Now you can also basically generate a SAS for a period of up to 365 days. This is only like one day. So I can say start date is this one and end date is something like a year from now. I can also do this. So I'll say July 1st. So I have almost like 1 year of SAS token that I've generated, and someone has got access to it. I don't know how, but somehow the employee whom I shared with has left the organization, and I forgot to rotate my keys. So I forgot to rotate my keys out here. I did not come here and I did not do this exercise at all. I just forgot about it. So do you all see how dangerous this is? Do you all see how sensitive information is being exposed out there? Now, any idea or anything upon how we can protect our storage account further? Like SaaS is okay, fine, but your SaaS is also exposed now. You have forgotten keyword rotation. Sorry, you've forgotten password rotation. You did not go over there and regenerate new passwords. So any idea, guys, any further idea on what can be done here? What can, what are the options here?
Provide access to specific network or IP that exists in an
Great, great. Anything else, guys?
Providing access to email ID.
Also providing security.
Great. Okay, those were great thoughts on that. And yes, that is right. Providing access, as Sanjay said, providing access to a specific network or providing access to a specific email ID. Sorry, providing access to a specific IP. Then how can I do this? I mean, using what can I do this? Now, every resource on any cloud that you are working with has something called as networking in it. Networking, firewalls, whatever you call, but by the end of the day, it just comes down and boils down to something called as networking. Any network, I mean, any cloud provider that you work with, whether be it Amazon Web Services, Azure, or GCP, the backbone of everything is networking. Or I would put it another way called virtual networks, because these are not physical networks, these are virtual in nature. So these are what? Virtual networks out there. Very, very, very important concept, guys. So I will go more slowly today. This is going to be a little bit confusing, but if you are confused anyway, if you're not understanding anything, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to explain it again. So virtual networking, meaning what happens? Let's say I have put some containers inside it. Let's say I'm just putting like a test container out here. And I'll say this is private, anonymous access, no anonymous access. I said, okay, fine, this is private. No one can anonymously access it. And I'll say, okay, fine. Let me now go ahead and upload very sensitive data out here. So I'll just say, take some sample data and let me see if I have something in my documents. Let me see. Okay, fine. So I have something like Azure icons and stuff like that. So let us consider that this is like the most sensitive data that I have. Okay. So I say upload. So this is like uploaded. So I have uploaded all my files, and these are not normal files. This is a banking sector, and this is a very, very, very sensitive information out here. So can anyone with an access key, or let's say a shared access signature, can they access it? They can, yes, come down and access this out. But I don't want it to happen that way. I am not comfortable with this. I am not comfortable with this kind of an authentication method. I don't want anyone and everyone to access my storage accounts. Rather, I want people only within the bounds of my organization or only within the limit of my organization to access it. What am I talking about then? So I say, okay, fine. I go to the networking team of my organization and say, hey, you know what? I want to protect this storage account. Can you please integrate it with a virtual network? Now, what are they going to do is come here and say, okay, fine. There is a virtual network for organization, but right now there isn't anything. So when we were going ahead and creating in a page called networking, we said all networks, but they will now switch it, or we will now switch it to selected networks. And I will say, okay, fine. I don't have an existing virtual network. I'll go ahead and create one. Excuse me. So I'll say this is a test hyphen vnet, my first virtual network that I'm trying to create. It's asking me what is the address space of it, or what is the address range of it. I'll say for now it's 10.0.0.0 /16. Now what is this and all? We are going to discuss about it. Say subscription, uh, your resource group, the location, and it's now asking me what is the subnet. I'll say okay fine, 10.0.0.0 /24. Take the subnet, I'm good with it. I'll say add. So what am I doing out here is that I did not have a virtual network. I did not have a concept of networking until now, but now I realize how important it is. So I say, okay, fine, let me go ahead, create something called as a virtual network. Go ahead, create a virtual network, and now add this virtual network to the storage account. So I'll say add exist. I mean, if you have an existing, you can add it, or I just created one. I said, okay, fine, add this, save it out. Now my storage account is a virtual network protected, meaning if I now go into, let's say, containers, and I'll now try to look into the data out there, the request is not authorized to perform. Your request that you're passing right now is not authorized to perform because you do not have the right access, or you are not a part of the same virtual network on which this particular storage account is integrated to. Meaning, what did I do right now is I had a storage account that was sitting out there on the open. So I had an open storage account out there that was not integrated, and access to this particular storage account was allowed from anywhere you're on in the world. So I am allowing access to this particular storage account out there. Now what I did is that I'm not comfortable with this particular model, so I bring in something called as a virtual network into the picture. I bought the virtual network and I integrate my virtual network with this particular storage account. As in, when I integrate my virtual network with this particular storage account, no matter what you do, no matter what you do out here, you will be getting this particular error until and unless you go ahead and do something known as an IP whitelisting. So this is the IP that I am coming from. So it's saying it's identified my IP. It says, do you want to whitelist your IP so that you can allow yourself to bypass the virtual network? I'll say add, I'll say save. And now if I, let's say, go to containers, now I am able to access my data, meaning I can now selectively give access to people, selectively give access to, let's say, IP addresses using a very simple concept known as virtual networking. And this is very, very, very important, guys. I have never worked in a company or never worked in a project where they did not have virtual networking. Any cloud you take, any cloud you're gonna take, you will have a virtual network in place. And for any cloud provider, virtual networks or this particular networking concept, right, it becomes a backbone to it. The entire cloud, basically the backbone of this entire cloud is, let's say, the virtual networking concept out here. So it is very important that we focus good amount of time to understand what virtual networks are. So let me go into my resource group. Let me open up the virtual network. Now I've created a virtual network called test-vnet, and there are particular attributes that we are actually looking at it. First and very importantly, it says address space. What is the address space of it? What is the name of it? What is the region of it? What are the number of subnets? Let's try to understand each and every concept out here. Let's try to debug everything out there. So let me start by telling that, or let me start by asking, guys, what do you understand by network? Like not a virtual network, but what do you understand by a network in general? Anyone, any thoughts about it?
Connecting multiple devices to access it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
to communicate between two or more devices.
Okay. Great. Any thoughts, guys? Any thoughts on it? In a more generic term, okay. We'll try to put it in a more generic term out here. Now, when you say that your mobile is out of network area, what do you really mean? That your mobile does not have a signal, and if your mobile does not have a signal, what can you not do? You cannot really do anything, especially let's say you are coming, I mean, you're not using a smartphone. I mean, if you're using a smartphone, then there can be debates that you can do a lot of, pictures, you can take a lot of photos and all that stuff. But let's not talk about a smartphone. Let's talk about a very small phone, which is just used for only calling purposes. If your mobile is out of network coverage area, what does it really mean? That you cannot do anything literally. Even if you have a phone, it is good for nothing, right? So to me, when I started with networking, for me, networking is all about communication. Communication between people, communication between devices, communication between everything. And this is very, very common, guys. Now, let's imagine that you are in a house, you have a laptop, you have a printer, you have a router, you have like mobile phones and all these things. Now, we are into a world which is called Internet of Things, IoT, meaning you have, let's say, a Google Home device or something like that. And when you say, hey, Google, can you please switch on my television? Google will say, okay, fine, let me connect you with your TV, or let me switch on the AC. And all these things are very common today, right? These are very common today because you have something known as a router in your home. Everyone has a router in their home, right? Very, very common. Like after Wi-Fi has come into the game, everyone has a router in their home, right? Now, router is a communication switch. For me, when I talk about a router, it's called a communication switch for me. Meaning, router is a hub which connects various devices of my home. And each and every device has something called as what? An IP address. Something called as an IP address. Now, what really is IP address? Let me say, just give me a second. If I say what's my IP and if I type this in Google, I'll say, okay, fine. This is, let's say, something like this. This is the IP address from where I am communicating to the world. Where I am communicating, I'm connecting with you guys and everyone. This is the IP address of my router. Meaning, if I want to communicate with y'all, I need an IP. IP in short, or IP basically is an acronym for Internet Protocol Address. That was about IP. That was how about communication and all that stuff. In the same way, these are all physical networks. What we are using today, like your routers and your communication switches, are all physical networks. But since you're working in the cloud, everything is virtual, right? So they have applied the same concept in the cloud and said, hey, you know what? We will also have a piece of software which will do all these things. That software is called virtual network. Since it is not physical, it's called virtual. That is about virtual networking. That what are networks? How can they really establish communication with each other and etc. Now then, since everyone has a home, right? See, I have an address. If I'm talking about a computer world, My address is my IP. Same way, a virtual network also has an address, which is known as what? An address space. Let's talk about this later, which is known as something known as an address space. And in my case, the address space was what? 10.0.0.0/16. Now, what this is really, like, what is this 10.0.0.0? What exactly is this? Let's talk about that right now. 10.0.0.0. Let me place this out further and say, fine, these are, few digits, and these are a couple of digits for me. Because it is human readable, I am able to read it. All this is like human readable. Let me expand this out further. Since this is human readable, meaning I am able to read it. This is human readable. But if you look from the perspective of, let's say, a machine, or let's say a server, or let's say something that is not human, which is, let's say, in, let's say, the digital world, it cannot understand this. It cannot understand what are these digits and all. Because computers and all these things, right? Which language they understand? They understand a language called machine language, which is all zeros and ones or binaries. So normally when, let's say, you are giving an IP address out there, let's say you're trying to reach out an IP address, let's say in the internet. Firstly, the internet will try to convert into from an IP address to a binary language. So how does it look like? So I'll say IP to binary converter. I'll say, okay, fine, convert my IP is something like this. It says, okay, fine, give me your IP. I'll say 10.0.0.0. Say convert to binary. All zeros and ones. All zeros and ones, guys. Everything in a format of zeros and ones out here. Here, the first digits. See, look at this very carefully. If you look at this thing, right? The 10 here is represented by what? 0.0.0.0.10.10. How do you arrive at it? There is a very simple math to it. You divide this 10 by 2, 8 number of times to get this particular digits, and you just form this out. So it's all IP to binary conversion, which is not necessary for us to really look at how we are converting it. Zeros, since it's all zeros, it's like zeros out here. Zeros and zeros. Okay. It says, okay, fine, this is the binary conversion to it. So when a machine reads it, when, let's say, a machine kind of reads it, it reads it in this particular format. Okay, first let me convert this into something known as binaries, and then let me try to understand what binary they are talking really about. So when you hit something on, let's say, the internet, when you try to, let's say, hit an IP on the internet, it first gets converted into the binary. Guys, clear until this point, guys? Any questions? Guys, are you all following this out?
Yes.
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay, great. Now let's see very practically. Each and everything that is separated by a dot. There are how many? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, right? And each and everything contains how many? How many digits? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Each and every of this 4 is containing 8 digits. So in total, how many are there? 32. Because 8 into 4 is what? 32 for me, right? In total, there are 32 right now. And since they are 8 each, right? They are called as an octet. OCTET. O-C-T. Octa is for 8, octet meaning 8 digits. Each and everything out here is called as an octet. Great. Then what is this 8? This is 8
Bits.
bits of information or 1 byte. Meaning each and every octet out here can hold 8 bits of information. What kind of an information? Information related to communication and all that stuff. Like it's a very big concept out there, but information, let's say, think about any random information. Like for example, you are messaging someone and for that you need two different IPs to communicate with each other. These IPs or these IPs carry those informations in this particular bits. And everything, 8 bits basically converts into 1 byte. And these are how many? 4 bytes. The total IPs are what? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So there are 4 bytes. So we're clear on a couple of things. Each and everything is called as an octet. Like there are 32 bits out here totally. 32 bits of information with every IP. And since they are how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? These are called IPv4. Internet Protocol version 4. Anything that you see today, any information or any IP that you see today, we are using something known as an IPv4 versions because it can hold what? 4 bytes of information and 32 bits of information out here. And since there are 4 out here, these are called IPv4 addresses. Let me clear this out. Let me come back to my normal mode. Bits of, these are like 4 bytes or 32 bits of information in this way. Great. Then how can I use it in the cloud? Now the thing here is that you cannot use the entire 32. That cannot be done. I am not okay, or rather there should be a standard establishment or there should be an agreed upon term that you cannot use the entire 32. Why? Again, there's a lot of technical reason to it, but very simple, you cannot use it. You cannot use your entire 32 bits of information. Rather, you will have to do something called as subnet masking. What do I talk about? What is really that? So if I put, let's say, a /16, let's take the very simple thing out here, a /16. This /16 that you see out here is called a subnet masking. Okay, this is telling you that, hey, you know what? I am not using 16 bits of information. Why am I not using? Because I am not meant to use them because I have to follow some standards agreed by the industry. Like if you go to a market and if you, let's say, take any product, okay, in India especially, it is certified by what? ISO. So you would have heard it very well, right? It's called ISO standards. If we, let's say, go to, let's say, a shop and let's say buy a pressure cooker, we will ask, does it have a ISO standard? Meaning, does it follow some standards? In the same way, IP protocols follow a standard called RFC 1918. RFC 1918 is a standard for private IP addressing. And we'll talk about it more, like what is this and all that stuff. But for now, say, they are following we are all following, let's say, the RFC standard. And we are saying it is /16. When I say it is /16 and when I say it is / something out here, I'm saying these are the bits that I won't use. Then how do you calculate the number of addresses that you get within an address space? So what is the advantage again of number of addresses again? Because each and every address space will give you some amount of IP addresses, and each and every IP can be used to secure one particular resource. So by rudimentary rule, you can say, by let's say by a very layman term, you can say one resource of one type. Let's say one storage account occupies one particular IP and it is protected. One virtual machine occupies one IP, it is protected. One web app occupies one IP, it is protected. One SQL server occupies one IP, it's protected. Like that, how many devices can you protect? Depends upon how big or how small your IP addresses are, or how big or how small your address space is. And if I go for a /16 address space, I will get somewhere around 65,536 private IP addresses. Then how did I really get into this number? Like, what is the meaning of this particular number out here? How do you calculate it? Very simple. Take the /16. Now, if it /16, then how many 8s, guys? It is 8 plus 8, 16, right? Very simple, 8 plus 8, 16. Now, what I do is I calculate from left to right. From left to right, this is the direction in which I'm calculating. If I say /16, this first 8 and the second 8, since I'm moving from left to right, these are static. These cannot be used. Only these informations can be used. Meaning, if you do a calculation of it, meaning if I go into the math of it, if I go, let's say, and calculating it out, it is 2 power, because these are all binaries. So it starts with 2. How many total number of addresses are there here? 32, right? How many are static? 16, right? Which gives you 2 power 16, which gives you 65,536. This is how you get to this particular number. Now, can I use any other number out here? Yes, you can. You certainly can. Say erase. I can say it is not 2 power 16 right now. It is it is not /16 right now. It is /24. Now, guys, will the number of IPs I get increase or decrease? Guys, any thoughts on it?
Decrease.
Exactly. Guys, do you all know why it decreases again? Guys, can anyone help me to just understand how many IPs that I can get here?
2 to the
Because
power of 32 minus 24.
Great. Guys, did everyone follow this concept? Are everyone comfortable with this particular concept? Guys, please let me know if you did not follow any part. Please do let me know if you did not follow any part. I'll be more than happy to explain, because this is very, very, very important, guys. So as Sanjay and as Chandra and as everyone said rightly, it is 2 to the power of 32 minus 24, which is 2 to the power of 8, which is somewhere around 256. 256 IPs is what I'm going to get out there. Now, is this something that we all have to memorize? Is this something that we all have to know by heart? Not at all. You don't have to do all this maths by yourself. But it is very important for you all to understand what is happening in the background. As a DevOps engineer, one of the most important roles that you will be in is towards something known as security. So in order for you to say how big or how small your address space is, you will have to just understand, okay, fine, this is how it is calculated. But let's say you are very lazy like me. I am someone who's very lazy. I don't want to do all these calculations. I don't want to do all this maths, because I was very poor at maths in my schooling. So I don't want to do all these things. Just go to CIDR.xyz. Just say, what is your IP address? 10.0.0.0/24. All the things that you see in colors are static. you cannot change them. All the things that you see in colors are static, you cannot change them. Thing that you see in ash color out here is something that is usable. So this is static, this is static, this is static, this is usable. Meaning you get how many? 256. This is how they do the math. And this is one of the most easiest tool to, just go ahead and look at it. Can you look at it in a real organization? You can. Because most of people, even architects whom I know, kind of use this tool to, let's say, calculate things out. Why is it? Because not everyone can, do the math calculation in their head, right? Fair enough. We are not a mathematician. We are technical IT guys. We do not have to know about the math that is going behind it. But we have to understand why this is going. Now, my job would have been really easy if I just told, hey, you know what, just go here, put your IP, and this is how you get it. But that's not my job. That's my job is more than it. It's to make you all understand how this is calculated. That is one thing. Great. Now it is calculated. Great. Now I say I put /24 out here. I get 256 IPs. Then what is the address range? What is the range of IPs that I get? So my IP starts something like this. Let me enlarge my text again. My IP addresses within this particular virtual network address space, which is 10.0.0.0 / 24, which is giving me 256 IPs. Then what is the range of my IP addresses? Is that the first IP is going to be 10.0.0.0. Second IP is going to be 10.0.0.1. Your first three are static. They cannot change because it's a /24. No matter how you do it, your first three are static. So 10.0.0.2, 10.0.0.3, 10.0.0.4, so on to the last address space, which is 10.0.0.255. This is the maximum number of IPs that you can get within this particular IP address out here, or this particular IP address space out here. And since it's 0 to 255, there are how many? 256 addresses. 256 addresses. This is how you calculate it, or this is the number of IP addresses that you actually get within this particular virtual network address space. So if you look at, let's say, what we have done with our virtual network that we have created, if you come here, it says this is the address space, which is 10.0.0.0 / 16, meaning it is 2 to the power of 32 minus 16, which is 2 to the power of 16, which is 65,536 addresses. If you look at this, it says address count is this 65,536. Your first IP can start from 10.0.0.0. The last IP can go to 10.0.255.255. Meaning, how is this calculated then? Very simple, same way, but you have something, you have the third one kind of changing. So I can have an address which is 10.0.1.0, 10.0.2.0 until 10.0.255.0. I can have a combination of both of the things. So that is what the address range says right now, that hey, you know what? You have an address range from 0000 to 10.0.255.255. This is very, very crucial. Before you go ahead and create a virtual network, you will have to understand, or you'll have to rather tell, or someone has to tell you. Let's say you have an architect above you. They have to tell you that, hey, you know what? This is going to be your address space. Because at a later point in time, I cannot increase it or decrease it once I create resources within it. Meaning, if you have 65,536 private IP addresses, you can have, or you can protect 65,536 resources of the same type, of a different type, a combination of everything, you can do it. Like we protected a storage account right now. We went into the storage account and we protected it using a virtual network. And how, I mean, why we were able to protect it? Because the virtual network is big enough. It has 65,536 addresses out there. But the question is, can you use this virtual network directly? Meaning, can you directly attach your virtual network to your storage account or any of the resources? No, you cannot do it. Your virtual network has to be further divided into something known as a subnet. A subnet is a part of the virtual network. You can have multiple subnets inside the virtual network as long as the subnets are in the address space of the virtual network. What do I mean by this? Meaning you have an address space of 10.0.0.16 /16, sorry. And I have a subnet of 10.0.0. This is common /24. Meaning my subnet cannot be bigger than my virtual network. If my virtual network is something like 10.0.0.0 /16, my subnets can only start with 16 or after 16. I cannot be having a subnet of 10.0.0.0 /15. I cannot have this. Can I have this 16? Yes, I can have. I will only have one subnet. Can I divide my subnets into, let's say, something logical? I'll say yes. I divided it in something called /24, which is giving me how many? 256 addresses. Now, if I do a 256 here, meaning I am getting somewhere around 256 addresses out here, right? So let me put it. It is 256. One subnet called subnet A is giving me how many? 256 usable addresses, and the subnets can be attached to your resources. So subnet is the actual unit that basically forms a bridge between your virtual network and a resource. So how many more subnets can I have in the same virtual network? Now my virtual network is how much? 65,536, right? And my subnet is how much? 256. Very simple math. 65,536 minus 256 available, because 256 are already occupied by this particular subnet. Then if I go for, meaning if I look at this particular subnet, what is its address space, or what are the number of IP ranges that I can get out here? So it is 10.0.0.0, 10.0.0.1, 10.0.0.2, so on and so forth. So I have a subnet that is starting from 10.0.0. The 10.0.0 is static. Now if I want to create a new subnet out here, I can have a subnet with 10.0, which is definitely static. You cannot change these both. But now I can say 1.0 /24. Now the addresses in this subnet, how are they looking at? This will be 10.0.1.0, first address, 10.0.1.1, second address, 10.0.1.2, third address, and so on and so forth, up to 256. I cannot create another subnet with the same address range. For example, if I add a subnet, and if I say this is like a test subnet 2, and if I say it is 10.0.0.0 /24, it says, you know what, the subnet overlaps with the default that is already occupied. You cannot now take that particular subnet again. I am sorry, you cannot do that. Then can I do a .1? No. Why? because 10.0.0.1 is already taken here, right? Under this particular subnet, the default subnet. So that's the reason I can do a 10.0.1.0/24. Then what if I want to add a third subnet? Guys, can anyone help me adding a third subnet out here? Like what can be the address space of the third subnet?
10.0.2.0. Yeah.
Right? So 2.0. Fourth subnet will be 3.0. Fifth subnet will be 4.0. Guys, is everyone following this? Does anyone have any questions until this point? Are we all good with this? Guys, are all good with this? Are everyone on the same page? Please feel free to, just let me know if you're not understanding anything. I can explain that particular topic again. I don't have any issues in doing that. Guys, is this okay? Guys, is everyone okay? All good, right? Akila, Avinash, Shrikant, all good? Like, did you all follow this out?
Yeah, yes, yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Now, great. So I am like dividing my particular subnets out there. Let me take this out. Okay, I'm dividing my particular subnet out there and I'm all getting like good amount of things. But look at this. If I go for the first subnet, ideally how much should I get? It is 256 IPs, right? But how many IPs am I getting? 251. Meaning here the subnet is starting from 0000 to 000.255. Ideally 256 is something that the number of resources are there in, or the number of address spaces are there in one particular subnet. But why is it that I am only getting 251 usable? Because when you divide a subnet, when you start dividing a subnet, let's say this is a /24, so you get how many? 256. Azure is gonna do a -5 for each and every subnet. These are called Azure reserved addresses. Azure reserved. Is it only with Azure? No, any cloud provider will do this. Any cloud provider is going to take this 5 out. Then what are these 5 out? First thing, why are these 5 out? First thing, for something called as communication. You will use by default one address as your IP. Second thing, for something called networking. Meaning one address is occupied for communication, second is occupied for let's say establishing the network. The 3, 4, 5 addresses are blocked for future purposes. What are future purposes? Let's say Microsoft tries to implement something new into your subnet in the future, and your subnet is full. They're not getting any place to occupy it. Then how will they roll out their update to you? Because this is a cloud provider, they can continuously keep changing something. So it is 3, 4, 5 or 3 addresses are blocked. 3 addresses are blocked for future purposes. The above is for communication broadcasting. The other thing is for networking. Meaning you won't be able to use 0000, 000.1, 000.2, 000.3. The first address that you can allocate to a resource is 000.4. Because let's say all those, 000.5, because the first 5 are occupied out there. So 5 are Azure reserved. It's not essentially that the first 5, they can take anything out of that particular pool. Anything of this particular pool of addresses, they will -5. That's the reason you have 251 out here. Plus 5 reserved addresses. So you will have to consider this for every subnet. You're gonna lose 5 addresses. So in this arrangement, I can have how many? 256 subnets, because 256 into 256 will give me 65,536 IPs. So I am gonna lose 250. I mean, I am gonna lose 5 in each, meaning 5 into 256 addresses I am gonna lose out there. So 5 into 256 subnets. In every subnet, I'm going to lose 256 addresses. Sorry, in every subnet, I'm going to lose 5 addresses. So that's how the math actually comes down. That is about IP addressing, meaning how many IPs that you get and how many you lose and all that stuff. Then what is, let's say, the smallest IP that I can go for? I'm doing a /24. Great. Can I do a 25? I can, because it is in the same address range. Anything above 16 is okay. Oh, great. I'm getting how many? 123 plus 5, meaning 128 out here. Can I do a 26? I can do a 26. I'm getting how many? 59 plus 5. Can I do a 27? I can do a 27. Can I do a 28? I can do a 28. Can I do a 29? I can do a 29. Can I do a 30? I cannot do a 30. Because if it is 30, how many addresses, guys? It is 2 power 32 minus 30. 2 power 2, 4 minus 5 Azure addresses, right? So if I'm taking out minus 5 out there, I'm getting minus 1. 4 minus 5 minus 1. I cannot have a negative integer out there. The smallest subnet is a 29, where you are going to get 3 usable and 5 Azure reserved addresses. So it is nothing but 2 power 32 minus 29, 2 power 3, which is 8, minus 5. This is how the calculation can actually go. That is about how small your subnet can be. If you do 15, it will throw an error telling that, you know what, this is not a valid CIDR block. Use something else as such, because you are not in the same address space and all that stuff. It's telling something known as a CIDR. All these addresses are called CIDR, address space or CIDR. CIDR, short form for classless interdomain routing. CIDR stands for classless interdomain routing. Any cloud provider is going to use this particular terminology out there. Then what is the maximum, or how big my virtual network can actually be? Let me clear this one out. Let me say, if I go into my address space, I am using a /16. Can I use a /15? I can. Address count is how many? It's increasing. 14? Yes, it's increasing. 13, 12, 11, 10. The lesser you go, the greater would be your IP addresses. What is the maximum? 8. You will get somewhere around so many IPs out here. 16,77,000, something like this, or 1 crore or something. I don't really remember the number out here. Or 1 crore 67 lakhs or something like this. These are the number of IPs that you're going to get. Can I do a 7? It is giving me a 7, but I won't be able to use a 7. Can I do a 6? Not a valid address block. Ideally, it should have given me the same thing for 7 also, but it's some odd reason it's just giving something like this. If I do a 6, it is not accepting the address. It is not a valid CIDR address block, because all these subnet or all the subnet masking, right, is following what? RFC 1918 standards. And according to RFC 1918 standard, a 10.0.0.0 can maximum go up to 8. This is called a single class A network. So a 10.0.0.0 can have maximum number of IPs, and these are called class A network. You can also have private addresses starting from 172 dot something, which can maximum go up to 12, which is called a class B network. And you have a class C network also, which can maximum go up to 16. These are called RFC 1918 standard, guys. Every virtual network that you create out here, every private virtual network that you create out here is going to follow these standards, is going to follow these all standards out there. Is this okay, guys? Any questions in this entire thing? Guys, any questions that I can take? Were you all able to follow this?
Yes. In real time, to create subnets or address space, will
Mhm.
architect will provide, or we need to think and we need to calculate and give it?
So if you go for a very small organization, right? So the architecture and all these things, the teams are not divided that great. So if you go for, let's say, a startup company and etc., it is you who is going to do it. But if you, let's say, go to an MNC, like a big company, then there'll be an architecture. There'll be a lot of teams basically that will already decide what are, let's say, the addresses and etc. So you'll just have to follow about it.
Okay. And if we are creating a resource group or submit in the
Mhm.
particular account, we need to document it, right? So that others can understand what we did and all,
Yes,
or
we need
how
to
it is.
document it. Yes,
Okay. Thank you.
no problem. Any questions, guys? Anything that I can take?
We need not decrease or increase the count, right? About the address spaces, everything.
No, after once you create it, right, in normal scenarios, you don't increase or decrease it. Like once you create it, you'll start using it out.
But it was standard, right? We can use the standard.
Yeah, you can use the standard. You can use this particular standard.
So, so CIDR is one-time job, right? So we cannot create regularly for the CIDRs, but we can create the subnets when required. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Correct. That's a right understanding. The CIDR is a one-time job. Like initially you will go to your networking team and ask, yeah, I want this big addresses. Can you please provide it to me? They will give you the address. Subnetting is your duty. So CIDR, yes, is a one-time duty. The virtual network address space is one-time duty. But one thing you have to very carefully understand is virtual networks are very regional resources. When I said you can have 65,000 different resources that are sitting, or ideally not so many, because each and every time you lose how many 5 IPs, right? So some amount of resources that you can integrate with this virtual network. All the resources that you're integrating have to be in East US too. I'm sorry, have to be in East US only, because you cannot integrate a storage account that is sitting in, let's say, Central US with a virtual network that is sitting in East US. These are very regional in nature. So that is something that you have to consider.
Yeah, I think I asked this question in second day or first day of the class.
That was
Yeah,
about
now I got it.
the resource groups, right? That's the reason I did not explain that then. So this is the reason I'm explaining it right now.
Okay.
So these are very regional in nature, meaning you can basically go ahead and, let's say, try to integrate your storage account with, let's say, virtual network that is sitting in any other region apart from ECS. You will not be able to do it. It will not even show you there is a virtual network there. And there is no relation between a resource group and this guy. So my resource group can be in any location. The resource group is nothing but a logical namespace for me to create my resources. It can be in any location, and you can create a virtual network in any location that is different from your resource group. But when you're creating your resources, it is very, very important to understand that you have a virtual network in a region called ECUS. So you will have to create your resources in that particular region. So that is the reason this is an architectural decision, I say, because once you create it, you cannot change it again, saying, hey, you know what, I don't like this region. So there is a lot of thought process that actually goes into it. telling that, okay, let me understand, or let's say there are a team of architects that decide upon it, saying where can our resources really sit in. If I, let's say, storage account, I want region pairs, I want redundancy, I want high availability. So let us all gather and say, okay, fine, East US 2 is the right region. Now my virtual network will also be provided in East US 2 only. And in all likely, your resource group will also be created in East US 2 only. Because there is no point in creating a resource group in some different region than your resources are. So since it's a logical namespace, you would just create it in the same region as this is. So this is how the virtual networks, generally are created. Now, what is your work today is, please go through this video again. If you're not following something, please try creating virtual networks on the Azure portal firstly, and then use PowerShell script to create one. Create virtual network using PowerShell. First documentation is going to give you how can you create it. So it's telling resource group, it's telling virtual network. Very, very, very simple. Just try creating this with the resource group. And if you have more time, please also try creating a virtual network using ARM template. Let's do this exercise more frequently, guys, because it is very, very important for you all to understand that PowerShell, ARM, or Terraforms are going to be your daily bread and butter. So if you focus from right now, like even with small resources, if you try focusing it out, I'm okay in y'all getting errors. Like make as many as mistakes possible. I'm okay in doing that. I'm okay in y'all doing it. But make sure you're used to it. Make sure you can at least have an idea from where you can start things off. So 3 things, guys. Go to the portal, create it out, see what are all the required parameters. And I did 10.0.0.0/16. You can do that, or you can go ahead and let's say, do a different RFC range. Like you have 172, you have let's say 198. You can also try these out. You can also try these out also. And you can also create different subnets out here. So make it an exercise. Create at least 8 to 9 subnets out here with different IPs and different address ranges, and see what you get with each and every subnet. We'll also talk about why you need so many subnets and all that stuff. But let's start this from today. And from today, at least the next, a 1 week or 10 days is going to be virtual networks, virtual machines, and then backup of your virtual machine, then concepts like availability of your virtual machine. There we're going to see something called load balancers and all these things out. So this week is going to be pretty interesting with different topics out there. I'll make sure that it is as easy as it can be for you all to follow it out with minimal efforts. So let's make sure that we can practice this concept out for today. And please don't forget about ARM templates and PowerShell scripting, guys. And again emphasizing on it. Please don't forget about it. Please make sure you practice this as much as you can, because that is going to be your daily bread and butter, guys. Please make sure to practice it as much as you can. And if there are any questions, you can anytime ask me out and I can help you with that. Is that okay, guys? Any questions that I can take for today before we close the session? Anything else? Yeah, Kiran, tell me.
Yeah. I have created yesterday the storage account, but it's not showing in my portal. I don't know why. I have created multiple storage accounts.
Okay. Like, are you
I
getting
don't
any
know
error
why
while
it's not
creation?
showing. It's not showing. It's not showing in the notification pop-up also. I don't know
Okay.
why it's not showing. I tried to create the resource groups. It is creating, but I don't know why it's not
Okay.
creating only the storage account.
Okay, I'm not so sure about it. I'll have to see what is the error and etc. Is it a free account?
Yeah.
Okay, can you ping me your ID and password privately so that I can, look into that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so Kiran, you got it right. So you can, ping me there. Okay, I'll look into that.
Sure.
Okay. Any other question, guys? Anything else that I can, help you all with today? Okay, so if there isn't anything that we have, so let's stop this recording and we can